So as a British person, I don't think there's anything that symbolises what is wrong with American patriotism than the Pledge of Allegiance. So for the people who aren't American in this and who don't know the Pledge of Allegiance, I'll just read it quick. It is, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And just to point out, the Pledge of Allegiance didn't always have God in it. It's sort of this thing that the Eisenhower administration undertook to put more God stuff into American nationalism. So for example, the coins got "In God We Trust" during this period as well. It's mainly stemming from, McCarthyist fears of communism, which is atheist and everything, so they put more God into different things. So the Pledge of Allegiance got even worse as time went on, and it's not surprising that it forgot its secular roots in the 1950s. As a British person, I find it pretty creepy that, kids in school, really young kids, have to pledge allegiance to, the flag and to God and everything. And I find that really, really strange. It's just blind patriotism, and it's not surprising that the US has such a bad history with nationalism and this warped view of Christian patriotism that you get people like Donald Trump, you get people like George Bush, you get people going along with things like the Vietnam War and the Iraq War and everything because you're brainwashed as a child to think this is normal, pledging your allegiance to a flag and to a God that you don't even have a choice in believing in. It's like forcing religion on children, as you're brought up, like someone like me. I was brought up a Catholic, I never had a choice in it. But it automatically skewers your worldview on what's right and wrong. A lot of Christians think being gay is wrong, for example, but you're brainwashed as a young child. So if you're brainwashed to think America is so great when you're a kid and how you pledge your allegiance to it, I think it sets you up for a bad mindset as an adult because you are not designed to be critical of your own country, which is fundamentally bad because why are you worshipping your country from a young age? You know what I mean? The US has done so much shit, but this is the start of brainwashing people not to recognise its own fault. So let's take this with the Colin Kaepernick stuff, right? He protests police violence against black people, right? He goes down on one knee during the national anthem, and that to most people is totally outrageous. How dare someone go on one knee during the national anthem, which bizarrely is played at the start of all NFL games? Why are you playing the national anthem at the start of these games? Not all the players are American. It's just very, very strange. And in the UK, we sometimes play the national anthem at sporting events, mainly for the FA Cup final, which is the English Cup final for soccer, which we call it football, obviously, and there's some other sporting events that also play it. But we don't play it before the start of every single football game. That would just be insane and weird because not all the players are from this country, and it also just promotes this blind loyalism to the British flag, and that is what you have in America because people looking over at this debate in America are you guys insane? Why can't someone use their First Amendment right to protest a flag which represents so many bad things to so many different people who might be Americans? It doesn't mean they have to love living in America. So for example, what does an American flag represent to a black person? What has America done to this race of people throughout its history, right? What does the American flag represent to an Indian person? But these people don't really have a choice where they grow up. But still in this country, they're brainwashed from a young age to worship this flag. And I think it promotes a lack of critical thinking, which, you see in abundance in America. Because, let's be honest, there's a special kind of crazy patriotic bullshit that exists in America that just simply doesn't exist in a mass scale in a lot of countries. Most Americans say they'd rather elect a Muslim than an atheist as president because this whole notion of religion being tied into patriotism is set out fundamentally in your Pledge of Allegiance, which began in this version in 1954. It also promotes complicity and everything because from a young age you're told how great America is, you're told to pledge your allegiance to the flag, you're the best country on earth, and that's to a lot of people. When you start criticising how bad America is, or if you say what America fundamentally is, it's an oligarchy, it's an empire and everything, people can't understand that because they're told from a young age how great America is and how wonderful this all is. And if you criticise these things, it's seen as odd. People have been kicked out of school for not standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. You're kicked out of school for not worshipping a flag. And flag worship is just, such a bad issue in America, just for what it promotes and what it stands for. And it's not surprising that most people who are super patriotic are also white, Christian, and generally vote Republican and love people like Donald Trump or George Bush and things like that. Or Ronald Reagan, for example, is the perfect representative of American patriotism. you know, all surface, talk a lot of bullshit about, you know, the destiny of America, talk a lot of bullshit about God and how great you are, how it's a shining city in a hill and everything like that, and just, you know, delude yourself into thinking the country is something it's not. You know, I'm a British person, but I'm also half Irish, right? And there's generally a lot of things I like with Britain, especially in terms of London, which I feel is a very different city from the rest of the country, but there's generally things I like, right? But at the same time, because I'm Irish and because I haven't been brainwashed to worship this country since I was born, I can recognise what the UK is, and I can recognise what the UK was and its awful history and everything it's done throughout this history and the things it continues to do today. I'm not so blind to think it's great, we're amazing, just because we have, you know, some secular values and we have a good history of a lot of intellectuals coming from here and inventors doesn't make me delude myself into thinking this country is wonderful. And a lot of people in Britain are super patriotic about Britain and you know, they don't want to apologise for the empire and they love Winston Churchill and shit like that. But also in America, it's just made 100 times worse. Like, most of the issues in the UK are just so much worse than the US, where they just won't apologise for anything. You know, Donald Trump can say Andrew Jackson was his favourite president. Someone who did all this shit to Native Americans, he can go and say that is my favourite president. And that is okay to most people because it's like, oh yeah, he is the president, it's Andrew Jackson. You can love him if you want because, you know, he was American. And I think it's a way American education fails from almost a starting point because of what this sort of stuff promotes. And I know a lot of people watching this will be like, you know, we all said it as kids, and you know, we're fine, and it just became a thing we said and everything. And I get it, because when you're a kid, these sort of dumb things, after a while, you just keep saying them, and you don't really think about the meaning behind it. But I think it's subconsciously doing things to your psyche and your opinions on America, especially as it gets you from a very young age. And while you may think it was dumb and everything, I don't think that would apply to everyone, because it indoctrinates you in this patriotism almost from day one. And whether or not you develop critical thinking, you might always have a bias towards this style of patriotism, even if you do find out or acknowledge the bad things Americans do, because a lot of the time, I know a lot of liberal Americans, they're still super patriotic and stuff. And I find it quite ironic that they still buy into this myth despite knowing the reality of the world and the reality of American history, but I think it goes to show how effective this brainwashing is. Anyway, that was just my perspective. Let me know what you think in the comments. Am I really overthinking this? Am I taking this too far? Do you think the Pledge of Allegiance is okay? Do you think in the UK we should make 5-year-old kids do the Pledge of Allegiance to, you know, pledge allegiance to the Queen and to God and everything? I see how, you know, the founding fathers talking about the freedom of religion really worked well in America when you're pledging allegiance to God every day in the classroom. But anyway, if you like this video, like, subscribe and share. If you want to follow me on social media, follow me at The Cavanacle on both Twitter and Instagram. I also have a WordPress blog where I write some stuff, and that is just The Cavanacle WordPress. And if you made it this far, thank you for watching.